Welcome to Mamahood After Trauma. I'm Emily, your host. Here, we share strategies and inspiration to help you heal and grow with kindness and understanding. Let's dive in. This is Mamahood After Trauma. Before we dive in, I want to introduce you to something brand new. If you love the podcast and want a deeper connection to your healing, check out the monthly Peace Pack, a small trauma-informed tool delivered each month straight to your mailbox to help you find calm in the everyday. You'll also get access to our private Patreon community where mamas like you can share, support, and learn together. Sign up with the link in the show notes. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I am honored that you have taken some time out of your busy mama schedule to tune in and listen. Today, we are joined by Georgia Stevens. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So let's dive in, shall we?
Do it.
So can you share a little bit of who you are and how you came to be working in the space for our listeners?
Yeah, so I have been working with families who are in stressful situations, likely have already experienced a significant amount of trauma or in the midst of a traumatic situation, from working with kids who are having life-threatening illnesses with the Make-A-Wish Foundation to being a child life specialist supporting families during end-of-life situations. And I gave birth to my own child in 2019 and had my own experience where it became very apparent that I had my own unprocessed complex PTSD. And as many of your listeners know, there is a very particular way that becoming a mother unearths a lot of things that you've maybe tried to push under the surface, sweep under the rug, all the cliches that we have for a reason, because we all do it, right? It's a survival mechanism. And I think something as like life altering as welcoming a child into your life, it makes little room to be able to ignore those things. Yep. So I went on my own personal journey of walking that path, and my daughter's 6 now, and I'm still, it's an ever-changing, non-linear process. So I'm still in it. So it's like, as a peer and a professional, I hold space for both.
Yeah. Our journeys, it was interesting when we were speaking before, we uncovered that your journey started just a little bit after mine. So we've been walking along this healing journey, each individual, but along the same timeline. Mine started in 2018, yours started in 2019. So it's interesting for me personally to be meeting different moms who I didn't know before they came on the podcast, to realize that, hey, we're doing this at the same time. And I just point that out because I want my listeners to understand that even though you feel alone in your messy middle, you are not alone.
No, definitely not.
And so I think that lended itself perfectly to that point, because I'm sure there were times on your journey where you have felt alone. I know I have.
Definitely. Absolutely.
And so maybe we could talk a little bit about that. How did you navigate those moments?
Yeah, it's actually a piece of that was it's like it's intertwined, right? That sensation of feeling isolated is intertwined with, especially like mental health disorders like perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. Almost like a piece of the name of the game is that you self isolate or you feel isolated in your what's going on in your brain chemistry is literally almost like making you feel like you're in this alone. Like it is like you're in a way is how it felt to me. And it's a little confounding when even if you had gotten to the point where you're in a support group with other people who are going through a similar thing, you go home at night and for some of us, like we don't have a partner that it sits in bed with us, or even if we do have a partner, we're feeling very disconnected. One of the biggest things, especially with trauma that I experienced personally, is detachment. And so you have detached from the world around you. And so inherently that's extremely isolating. It's about for me, or even though like I still felt very lonely, I still felt very isolated, even when I got to the point in my journey where I had sought out a support and I could be in a room where, a part of what my journey was admitting myself into a virtual hospitalization program where 5 days a week, 6 hours a day, I was literally in a room with 8 other women who were going through a very similar situation. And I would grab on to those moments of camaraderie, like it was my biggest lifeline. And so even if that sensation of what not alone didn't last all day long, like I'd still go home and rest my head and try to sleep. And those thoughts start to swirl, you start to spiral, you just feel like, oh my God, like no one else feels this. Why do I feel this way? I feel so out of control. And it like you can spiral, but any tangible thing I could bring back from those groups, like the one that comes to mind was these postcards that we wrote to each other in circle. And we literally just would write like observations that we had of the other person because when we're going through it, it's hard to see like, yes, I'm a good mom. Yes, like I'm doing a good job here. Like you have a lot of negative talk. And so I had these note cards and I kept them on my bedside table and I would just look at them because not only was it a tangible representation of there are physically other people that are walking this path alongside me and not alone. The word that I really dislike, but came to my mind, like, I'm not crazy. Lots of other people that are going through this, we all deserve support and we all can seek it and we all can seek community in this. And as I went through it and I healed and I got to have some of those thoughts like turn down the volume a little bit, feeling isolated and all of that. I started to be able to see like, oh wait, I do have community. Oh wait, I'm not alone. And like it felt bigger and bigger to the point where like one of the women who I was in the group with when her baby for teeny, like she and I are still very close and best friends. And she's pregnant with her second and our firsts are like 6 years old now. And it's like a whole new cycle. Like, all right, let's support each other as you're entering into this new stage again. Of isolation has actually been like a really interesting thing to reflect on. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And I want to just bring up the point that if you're a mama listening to this episode and you are feeling that isolation and you know that you have complex PTSD or another mental health illness, that that feeling of isolation does not make you broken. It is your nervous system's way of protecting you because at one point or another in your life, being isolated was the safest option. I just gave myself chills.
Yeah, me too.
At one point or another in your life, being isolated was the safest option.
Yeah.
And so if you feel that now, it doesn't make you broken. It's just old programming that once kept you alive.
And gratitude for that.
Yeah.
It was that short of really saying, thank you for protecting me. I see what you were doing.
Yeah.
And I no longer need you. Like,
Yeah.
and
You've done your job. Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
we are safe now. And that is not an overnight process. So don't beat yourself up if you go through that and you're like, but it's not working. I said that, I did that, and it's not working. Well, it takes time. It took you time, took your nervous system time to learn that isolation was the safest option. It's going to take yourself time to learn that it's okay to be in community,
Yeah,
safe to be
absolutely.
in community.
And it's about trust too, right? Like, I feel like one of the hardest pieces of it is to build trust with others and be able to trust others, especially in your most vulnerable moment. And then I realized, like, I needed to develop trust for myself too. Like, I
Oh,
needed to
yeah,
trust myself. And that was a process that I'm still learning.
you do.
Yeah, it isn't overnight. And it is one, which is why I do think that community is such an important part of this journey, so that you do have someone who can hold your hand, and whether that's physically or virtually or conceptually. Yeah, because not all of us are lucky enough to have those people physically right next to us, but knowing that out there are other people, other spirits, other people, other like entities that are there to say you are not alone in this, and you deserve just to feel supported. You deserve to feel held. You deserve to. It was That's how my whole journey started, was literally holding it in for so long, not telling anybody how I was feeling, trying to keep it all together until I was with that one friend who there was like a window, a sliver of like vulnerability and openness in my body. And I just told her, oh my gosh, this is how I feel. And I told her, and she just stopped it in her chest, held my hand and go, you do not have to do this alone. You do not have to push through. You deserve to pay attention to that. To that one person, whether that's someone you call or go out and get coffee with or something, like that's enough. Like, you don't need to have a gaggle of gals, which is great if you have it. But if it's just one person, that's all it takes. Sure.
Absolutely. And I would take that even further and say that community is critical on this journey, because you can do some healing work on your own, but there are days where, especially in the beginning, where it's really hard to keep moving forward and to not get sucked back into the vacuum of the familiar.
Yeah.
And the misery. And having that community helps you, that's able to support you and keep you moving forward, helps you to keep going forward because you're not doing it all on your own. You're not just relying on your strength and your strength alone. And I know that can be really challenging for some trauma survivors to hear, because we've developed hyper independence. Because at one point that was the safest option. So, yeah, learning to trust other people, learning to trust yourself, those are you. Those are huge things that are super, super important. But again, it's not an overnight process.
It's not. And all the while being a mother, all the while trying to raise your children and to help break the cycle, because trauma comes in different forms. It could be situational, it could be generational. And so for a lot of us, it's not only just healing ourselves and going through our own journey and setting that all up, it's also about breaking the cycles for our kids. And through doing that work too, there's a belief that the healing that we do heals the ladder of bonds that came before us. And so to me, that type of encouragement of knowing, like, on the days where my own concept of self-worth was just so minimal that like that wasn't enough to like keep me going, it was looking at my child. That was the thing that allowed me to be like, oh no, A, I want to connect with her. And B, like, I want her to not have to relive a lot of the things that I went through, that I know that my mother went through and her mother went through. Things like that, that you can see sometimes how these things can be cyclical in certain situations. And so that type of external motivation for me, it was really important because when you're saying, like, when you were talking about that feeling of being stuck back into the vacuum, we're all going to have those dark days. Like, and it's so hard not to just lay in that despair and be like, all of this hard work, everything that I'm doing, because this isn't easy, right? Like, it's not a walk in the park to revisit your trauma. Thank goodness for practitioners and things like EMDR, right? There's just so much wonderful resourcing out there for us now, but it is hard to find and it's tough work.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It is not for the faint of heart. And so finding that like external motivator was really important for me. For me, it was my child and my desire to feel attachment to her, to feel close to her. And she's still my motivator, right? So 6 years later, I'm still going to therapy and doing my work. And I look to her to be like, oh my gosh, on the days when it's really hard, I'm like, okay, there's a reason for all of this. As I'm building my own self-worth, I've been saying, I can say to myself now, right? Like, I am worth being able to walk through life, having my spirit intact and having my sense of autonomy, not having my nervous system be in control all the time. Like, I am worth that. And on the days when that's hard, it is nice to sometimes have an external motivator.
He is worth
it's like for you. Yeah, she's worth that. She's my external motivator. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because those bad days are inevitable. There's no way to avoid them. And learning how to allow those bad days to happen without sitting down to tea with them and run the show.
Yeah.
It's a skill.
It is a skill. And that's where I think having a community of peers is super important, but also insofar as your community allows like a community of professionals of learning how to do those things, of letting in the thing that to make you the most and not letting it take up too much of your attention. Yeah. It's a muscle for sure.
Yeah.
Spending the time trying to be like, get out, I don't want to think about you anymore. That is paying attention to it. That is giving it energy. And so I remember there's this visual, this video from one of the myriad different therapists that I saw during all of my recovery journey. It was like a video of the unwanted guest at your party. The person that was, you didn't want to come to your party and walk into your party. And you could see this guy, they're like obsessed that they walked in and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, then we them to get out. And then you ignore all of the other things that are in the house that you did invite, that you do want there. And so instead of hyper obsessing about that, giving them a place, be like, hey, this is where you can sit, giving them something to drink, that you're here. There's your place. And then you move on. And then you tend to the rest of your death and the rest of your party. And that visual was helpful for me. I was trying to learn that skill.
Yeah. What are one or two action steps that you can share with our listener that you could take with her to help her along her journey?
I feel that like first is considering who your people are. Like for me, it was a full process to even just write down the names of people who I knew that I could talk to, even if I didn't want to talk, because like for a while I was just not responding to people's text messages. I was self-isolating and all of that. But if you're going through it right now, who are the people in your life who you can trust to hold your reality in a non-judgmental way? And that's a tall order for a lot of us, that we don't always have a lot of those people. But I also wonder, like, if we sit there and we think, like, it might be somebody that we're least expecting, right? Like my friend who I was walking with was a friend that would see each other at the dog park, but I knew that she was a social worker. So I knew she had the capacity and the skill set to be able to hear what I needed to say. And that actually developed our friendship into a much deeper place because I confided in her. So we're just thinking about who are the system people that are around you, or the friends that you haven't maybe touched base with in a long time, that like you could text them, you could call them, you could reach out to them, because just having one person who you can be like, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. You'd be surprised, like, either like people you haven't talked to in a long time, it could come out of the woodwork and be like, oh my gosh, me too. Like I went through this too. And then all of a sudden you have that lifeline, you have that person that you can talk to. And then I also obviously really recommend looking at the resources in your community for like professional support and support that's a little bit more formalized, and resources like Postpartum Support International, especially if the work that I do is I'm a doula now, and I offer like peer support for people going through this because I felt, okay, something like Postpartum Support International. I didn't necessarily get to the point where my trauma could be addressed until my baby was a little older. So in my mind, I was like, I'm not postpartum anymore. But anywhere on their motherhood trajectory, trauma comes up all over. And so looking at resources like Postpartum Support International, finding mom groups, finding things like, honestly, like I am able to talk to anybody in the country. And so please, like, you can give your listeners my contact info if they just wanted to email me and chat with me. And I'm trying to do a monthly group of people going through it, because I have had people come into my peer support group for perinatal mental health, and like their kids are 15 years old, right? And as trauma survivors, a very interesting thing is that when our kids reach the age that we were when we experienced our trauma, well, guess who just came back in security that he didn't really, he definitely didn't invite them. Do not invite them. You do not want them there. And even if you've processed, and even if you've been on this journey for so long and you've gone through so much work, like invariably, like when your kiddo reaches that age that you were when you experienced something that changed your life forever, that is the time to call in your people to circle your wagon at the speak.
That's a layer of the onion you have not addressed yet.
Yeah. So those two things. Who can you call and text in the middle of the night if you're feeling a dark thought and like you just need that to be helped by somebody, or someone that's going to keep texting you and checking in even if you don't respond? For those friends of mine, that they didn't take offense when I was in the thick of it, and they were like, oh, Georgia hasn't responded to me in a week, so I'm just going to give up now. Like, no, those friends that just are going to keep responding, keep texting you, letting you know that they're sending you love. Those are the people that you want to think about. Like, who are those that are in your corner? And then who are the practitioners that you feel like are in line with what you need that can support you?
Yeah. Yeah. That is excellent advice. And my DMs are always open if you want to DM me and talk. No judgment here. Georgia's contact information will be in the show notes. You can message her, email her. You are not alone. If you are in the thick of it, in your messy middle, feeling all the feels that motherhood can bring up when you're navigating motherhood alongside of trauma recovery, it's messy. And things come up when you're least expecting it and can really throw you for a loop. And yeah, that doesn't make you broken. So how can our listeners connect with you if they would like to do that?
They can connect with me via email. The best way to reach me is Georgia, the podfamilycenter.com. I'm based in Los Angeles, and so for the past year, I've had a space here where we've been doing peer support groups and things like that in a very non-judgmental, mental health forward kind of space, because especially as a new mom, I felt it was challenging to find a mommy and me group where I didn't feel like, oh man, like I'm the only one that's like really going through a rough time right now. Like everyone looks so put together, and this is making me feel real off right now. So yeah, like I just getting so good. It was like, no, like please show up. Like we're here for all of it. Tell us how you feel. That's what we're here for. And then I'm also always in connection with like specifically trained perinatal mental health professionals, so that it's not so daunting to look out into the community. And I'm now shifting that to be more virtual, because I realized that when I started going through it, I was in a small town in Texas. Like I literally had to fly out of state to get hospitalized when I was in a really dire place. And I don't want people to feel that the support that you can get is dependent upon where you live. Yeah. So I'm going to be putting, like, right now, my Instagram is the Pod Los Angeles, but soon it's going to be the Pod community. I want people to be able to reach out to me. I'm going to have these virtual groups because I don't want it to be location dependent, because that is how I felt. I felt very isolated when I lived.
That's how I felt too. I was living in northern Alberta where, uh, to my knowledge, a therapist didn't exist. Like I did therapy via Zoom when Zoom was new. And right after my daughter was born. And so for me, it's really important to create resources and make resources available to all mamas because they're, I know here in Canada, if you live outside of a larger center, it can be really challenging. And it can be really challenging inside a larger center too, cost wise. Accessibility to resources like the work that you do, Georgia, it's critical for mamas and for our babies. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for being on the podcast today. It was a pleasure.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much, Amelia. And thank you for having this space for folks to listen, because I feel like this is where, like, sometimes you get that first breath of a lifeline, right? Of, oh my gosh, I'm hearing other women talk about their experience with this. And I literally know that I'm not alone now. And even just getting to talk with you, it has been even, like, really soothing to me to be like, wow, yeah, there were other people out there walking through this at the same time. So I really appreciated that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Mamahood After Trauma. If today's episode resonated with you, make sure to grab your Unlocking Peace guide from the link in the show notes to start your healing journey with practical tools. Remember, Mama, you're not alone in this. Together, we're mending the past so mamas can mama in peace. See you next time.